Welcome, 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 everyone, to another Universal Citizen Media live webcast. Come on, everyone, come on into the room. Get yourself associated. Get yourself relaxed. Let's allow ourselves to have a greater perspective here in the now as we allow greater things to come into our individuated life. So I'm going to read something to you guys that was created by one of my mentorship students, Laura Massey, an incredible, beautiful, light woman who I've seen transform time and time again. And this was from one of my mentorship student classes from earlier this year. And this is a disclosure story for children. Now, she did such a masterful job on this, and I want to be able to share it with you so that you too can write a kid-style disclosure story. This one's about 4.5 pages, and there's some extra stuff that I'll share at another time. This is to inspire you, that are those that are mothers and fathers, or those that are just writers themselves. That disclosure can come in many forms. It's not all about the bad and hidden stuff. There's other aspects to disclosure that can be very beneficial to people when brought in the right perspective. So sit back and relax as I read to you this disclosure story for kids. Once upon a timeline, there was a very large forest ruled by a very bad king. The king was so unkind and cruel to all the trees. He had special magic powers that he used to put the trees into confusion and hypnosis. Sometimes he would redirect the rivers so they flowed to his castle and could not reach the beautiful weeping willows who thrive near the water. Sometimes he polluted the skies so that the air was not pure enough to keep the trees healthy, and so that the rain was full of chemicals. Sometimes he created great swaths of thin clouds right over the sun for days on end, so that the trees' access to full sunlight was dimmed. He was a king with no honor or integrity. He actually delighted in inflicting these things upon his forest. It gave him pleasure. Then what he would do is trick the trees by telling them that Mother Nature was responsible for all their hardships they were put through, and that he was a strong king who could find solutions to their problems. And he showed them this by redirecting the rivers, sometimes to flow back through the forest. The trees were very impressed by this. They began to start asking the king if he could do all the jobs Mother Nature was supposed to do. The king was delighted. It gave him even greater powers if they asked him for assistance. Sometimes the trees said nothing, but simply put up with the continual redirected water and lack of sun and pollution. And because the trees didn't protest, the king took it as a sign of weakness and continued to operate his control over all the natural resources that affected his forests, all the time telling them that Mother Nature didn't really exist. With lack of pure rain and fresh flowing water and lack of sun and clean air, the trees became very unhealthy. This meant their branches could not reach high to the skies or their roots deep into the soil. They grew weak with the inferior supplies of what they needed to grow tall and strong. All they could do was rely upon the king and his magical powers to help them. They found it hard to reach out to each other because their branches and roots were so stunted. So instead, they learned that all they had to do was ask the king for more sun and water, and he would rearrange it for a while, just long enough for them to feel a little better. Then he would secretly turn it all around again. This went on for many years. The trees became obsessed with what the king could do for them and what it would do. They stopped sending their roots deep down into the soil and really relied upon the king to bring in the rains. Because they stopped sending roots out so far, they became isolated and disconnected from each other. The trees began to argue, and before long, they needed the king to decide on which tree was right and which tree was wrong. Trees that the king decided were wrong were felled at once for the castle fires. So all the trees lived in dread of saying or doing the wrong thing according to the king. Some of the braver trees did try to question the king about why Mother Nature would desert them in this way, but the king never gave us any satisfactory answers. When too many trees asked too many questions, he banned the asking of questions completely. Squabbles broke out, often as the bigger trees vied for a bigger share of the limited rays of the sun, and they began blaming Mother Earth herself. Now the king saw all this and smiled a very smug smile, for he now had complete control over all his trees. He needed this because he lived with a huge fear himself, but all the trees in the forest had far more power than he did, both individually and as a collective. And if they were to discover their own powers, he would lose control completely. And he didn't want this at all. He believed he was entitled to rule this forest, and besides, it was wicked fun to see how easily they were duped. Now, deep within the forest, well away from where the king did his daily rounds, a beautiful oak tree had managed to bear a few acorns. These had dropped to the ground. One very tiny acorn had gotten nicely buried in a lovely damp patch of sweet earth. On one of the sunnier days, the sun had warmed the soil and the rotting leaves around this little acorn, and he popped his head out of the soil. All around him was the damp, sweet-smelling mulch of old leaves, which gave great comfort to the little acorn. He felt the warm nourishment and protection they gave him. The leaves whispered to the little acorn, and that were his ancestors, who'd fallen from this huge oak over many years, forming layer upon layer of protection and wisdom just for him. The acorn felt in his little acorn heart that this was true. He didn't know why he felt this way. He just knew. Day by day, he grew a little, and his ancestors, the leaves, continued to keep him with all the supplies he needed to grow. And they told him great stories of how the forest was once a free, strong, healthy set of trees who swayed happily in the breeze. Some of the other trees heard this talk and said it wasn't to be spoken of. The little oak tree had so many questions, and his ancestors answered every one patiently and lovingly. The king had organized a thinning of the forest trees now and again. He told them it was for their own good, and most of them believed him. Sometimes the king's men would pull up healthy young trees like this little oak, but he had always avoided this because the leaves would piled themselves around him so much, so he was hidden. As he grew, learned that these old leaves would always be there to protect him. They would whisper to him messages of encouragement and teach him great wisdoms that he had learned from the trees and the leaves that came before them, and explain to him that although they were no longer alive on the tree, they were still here on the earth, all around him. And he would often smile, because as he watched his new leaves unfold, their leaves in beautiful new green, he knew he was creating ancestors of the future. And he would tell them all the stories that he had been told. So he did, as they said, and set his roots in a comfy position so they would grow deeper and help him grow taller. As the little oak grew, he learned many things about the forest and the king who ruled them. And he began to ask many questions of the trees around him, but very few gave him the answers he was looking for. Sometimes the wind would whisper the answers, and he felt the truth of their words through his branches. In fact, sometimes he couldn't tell the difference between whether it was the wind moving his branches or himself. He felt so connected. Often the wind spoke of a new forest emerging from the old, where the trees lived freely and peacefully without the king's rules, because they could decide things for themselves. The little oak grew very excited about this. He liked the idea of making his own decisions about his own future. He wanted to know more and more. The new forest sounded beautiful to him. After a while, he came to hear of other stories of what the other trees called news. This didn't arrive on the four winds. It came from other trees. And there were many stories and histories, each one more fascinating than the last, and some completely disrupting what the previous story had said. The little oak, who by now was becoming bigger and stronger each day, started to get confused with all the different information he was receiving. He'd repeat some of it to the younger trees, who looked at him sometimes in disbelief and sometimes in awe that he should be the recipient of such amazing information. But the oak was never really sure about this news. He really wanted to believe all the exciting stories of how other trees from other planets would come down to Earth and save them from the king's rule. And he spent many hours gazing at the sky, trying to see tree spaceships in the clouds, and telling any other tree that would listen about them and how they would come to save them. He became so obsessed with all the great news he was hearing, he completely forgot to listen to the four winds. But still they blew their words of truth, whether he had heard them or not. They continued to blow even stronger. One day he came to hear about news from some of the trees who were on the edge of the forest. They had been listening to the king's men. Now the king had gotten to hear that the winds had got up and were increasing their messages of peace, and he didn't like this one bit. His greatest fear was losing control of his forests, but he had a very clever plan. He took the words of peace from the winds and he twisted them. He weaved his own spells and magic upon the words and printed big newspapers and posters and leaflets made from all the rebellious trees he had felled, and told his men to go and tell the trees his new stories. His new stories. They were stories of fear, how lucky the trees were to be ruled by such a great king, and how there was much war between trees that needed the king's men to protect them, and that nothing new or outside the forest was safe. He told them that everything not sanctioned by the king was there to harm them. Now, because all this new information contained many of the truths of the four winds, when the trees on the edge of the forest heard all this, they figured that all the words were truth, and disease rippled between the branches because of the words of fear and control woven into them. Tied from the overlord of conflicting stories and news, fearful of asking any questions or challenging the king's rule. Some of these trees simply agreed that the king must be right after all. Deep in the forest, as this reached the little oak, who had been wondering himself what to believe. He had spent so much time on his own these days, with all the other trees being so preoccupied with all the truths and untruths. He had decided just to hold his head up to the great sky above. It seemed such a long way away. At night, he loved watching the stars twinkling prettily above him, and he decided it looked mighty fine to be free up in the sky. He realized to reach really high, he would have to dig his roots really deep, otherwise he might topple over. He knew a lot of the other trees had given up and really searching for their deeper supplies of water and nourishment, because he'd already sent his little roots down a long way, and the only other roots he had found were those of his mother's. He didn't know where the inspiration came from this to do. He just felt somewhere deep inside him that he felt this good, and it felt the right thing to do. And he kept on digging deeper and reaching higher. Now all this burrowing and stretching meant he connected to more nutrients needing to grow from below and more sunlight from above. He just started to fill out and form a strong oak tree. He began to feel very proud of himself, that he was growing so big and strong and outgrowing many of the other trees. And in his strong oak heart, he started to remember many of the wisdoms his ancestors had spoken of. He found he was far happier recalling all their stories than he was listening to the gossip of the other trees and news, many of whom had started really believing confusing mixture of truth and lies that the king was spinning. They had told him not to waste time burrowing deeper for water to make himself strong, because the news was that something big was about to happen. When the oak asked what sort of event this very big thing was, the trees all seemed to tell him something different. Some were relying on the news that the king himself would step forward and give the announcement. Some were saying that they were huge tree spaceships coming to land, full of extraterrestrials, who would knock down all the big walls surrounding them and undo all the king's hold over them and set the trees free. Now the oak, who was getting stronger and fitter by the day, pondered this for a long time. He was thinking that he was quite enjoying all the benefits of his hard work, sending his roots through the soil and reaching for the stars. He didn't really like the thought of the king doing whatever it was he would do to free him, because he didn't trust the king anyways. And he certainly wasn't bothered about all the walls surrounding the forest, because he was going down deeper, not sideways. And he had grown so tall that he could look right over the wall. And he was finding that all the other things that his ancestors and the Four Winds had told him was true. And besides, he had already felt free. He could reach the high winds way above the other trees and speak to them directly. And he found himself dancing with his branches to his own music. It was his way of honoring his ancestors who had taught him to teach himself. He had learned to reach deep within himself for nourishment. Of course, he had tried telling many of the surrounding trees about this lovely gift he felt they all had. But they always came up with some excuse or another as to why they couldn't do it and why they needed to ask the king what would be best for them. So he felt that the gulf between them was getting bigger and taller. He grew more and had left them behind. For a while, it made him very sad. He loved his friends and family in the forest, and sometimes he wished he could ungrow and go back to just being the height so he could hear all the conversations and gossip. But he felt the lure of the fresher air and soothing winds and brilliant bright sunshine and the silky deep purple of the night sky with the millions of specks of flickering light, and he knew that he had to keep on his own journey with or without them. And he reached the conclusion that maybe if they would listen, he would just do it anyways. And perhaps they would see how happy and free he'd become, without any need for a king or big thing to happen, for it was, he felt, already happening. After all, what could be better than this? Aho. Fun little special story. I'm so glad that I've been able to share it with all of you. Wow. So let me pop into the chat room here. Uno minuto, por favor. So, everyone. There we go. I had to mute myself on the other side. Anyways, chat. Where can I see chat? All right. All right, everyone. So go to the chat room and use your spiritual jazzercise to learn how to raise your hand, lower your hand, raise your hand, lower your hand. And for those of you that are practicing raise your hand and lower your hand, put it back. Give me some messages back about the story that this kid's story from Laura. I would also like to venture a challenge to anyone that's out there that has any form of writing skill to take this as a challenge and up the bar one level and tell the kid's story in a way that people can understand. Because there are many aspects, from the tree wall to the tree trunk, the king. There are so many ways clever things can be done by clever people. So, Robert, are you there?
I'm here still. My internet's still there.
What did you think of that kid's story?
Yeah. I enjoyed the visuals. I was thinking how I could read that and have it be something that my 2-year-old would get or understand. I'm not sure if it would be good yet because she likes pictures.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have some artists out there who maybe want to take this. And if people are looking for a copy, you can contact info@Unified Health Systems and ask for the Laura Kid story, and we'll send it to you as a PDF. We're just asking that you give us an email so that we can contact you with further information. All right, Robert, let's open up the wheel of callers.
Okay, our first caller will be Michelle. Michelle, you're unmuted with Andrew.
Michelle, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from Ireland.
Ireland, welcome to the international line. What did you think of the kid story that I just read?
I loved it because the great oak tree is such an amazing tree here in Ireland, and we had the Ogham language, which was the language of the trees. The wind would blow through the trees and it would give them messages. And the great oak tree was the one that hailed the acorn, and it's held very sacred here in Ireland. So I loved it because the oak was the king, you know, and every tree has its own passage of time.
So what have you learned from the trees
they're
this
all
lifetime?
slow. Some of them are slow growing, and some of them take.
Yes, wonderful.
I've learned great protection in trees.
Yes, me too.
I've
learned how to.
9 trees in my garden.
Beautiful. You've been connected to trees since you were very young?
I grew up just climbing in trees. I grew up in trees, climbing trees from a very young age with loads of my friends, and we made rooms in trees, like bathrooms, bedrooms. We just hung out in trees.
Wonderful.
I just loved the trees, you know.
So what did you want to talk about with me today?
The story of the king. I spoke to you before, Andrew. Yeah. I would love to know about the Battle of Ventry, because Dara Dunn was the king that came to Ireland, and there was many battles here in Kerry, but one of them in particular, the king of the world decided to come to Ventry, Countrall. The king of Greece, there was battleships from all over the world, and I don't think they were here to fight the warriors. I think they were here for something else.
Yeah, they all came from the underground
And I think
tunnels.
you were here too in that time.
Well, it's quite possible. I observe a lot of time-space occasions. So during that particular era, when lineage kings were called to a certain era of history, it's because the subsurface world was going through political turmoil, in which how the surface world would be ruled and oversought and policed. And when you had the kings of the various areas come into there, it was because they were putting their surface energy vote for soul family dominion or domination. So it was a choice the surface world had to make, to be in dominion with its ancestors or to be in domination and control with its ancestors. You had to make a choice. And this is what created many splits in the giant soul families that were out there. And it was part of the great redirecting of what time-space could be as a perception.
Yes. And when you say giant soul families, I think they were giants, yeah?
Yes, they were giants, and part of the reduction of the soul families, breaking them into smaller structures was needed, Billions in the soul family down to hundreds of thousands. That's the reduction level.
At a reduction level, wow.
Right, and the reduction level meant what
do you
was
think they were
physically
taking
as
massive
DNA.
Crystals out of here?
Say that again? We got a little bit of a delay right now.
Do you think they were taking crystals out of the caves here? Like
Absolutely.
moving massive crystals off the land?
And seeding,
I have visions of that.
As well as seeding giant crystals in there. Kind of like growing a tree from a sapling into a medium-sized tree and transplanting that. They would often do this all throughout the United Kingdom, Britain, the whole Brittany area, the Great High Mountains, where they'd seed crystals, and then a few hundred years later, they come back and harvest them and take them to other worlds.
Yeah. Wow. And they took all our trees from here too.
Yes,
they
would take hundreds of thousands and billions. Well, not just the trees. Like they would cyclically harvest a tree, not by cutting it at its base, but they take it root and all and dirt, and then transplant it back on another world. They basically tree nap hundreds of thousands of trees and then graft them onto a brand new world.
Wow.
Yeah. Because
Yes.
trees are actually
Because the knowledge from the
very
trees
rare.
was coming from the ancient land.
Well, it's an earth tree making it very different, but trees are actually very rare species. Even though we have an abundance of them on this world, they're very rare. They don't exist in a lot of the world. Bushes do, not trees.
Yeah, amazing. Wow, thank you, Andrew. I just wanted clarification. I was feeling all that. Since we spoke the last time, I've become a craniosacral therapist, and I'm on my 3rd module now. And I just want to thank you for that.
What have you learned on that journey of discovery?
A wonderful journey.
Well, tell me about the journey. What have you learned from Cranial 1 and 2? What are the big lessons?
The big lessons from working with it was I had to relearn all my boundaries with people. That wasn't something that was taught to me because I had been a chef in my previous career for 30 years. In a small town, because my friends were coming to me, I had to be really clear about my boundaries, about myself, and clean my own energy field, make sure that I had the right people around me. I've become very good at it now. In the last 3 years, I've learned so much, so much.
Well, wonderful.
Yeah, it's been a spectacular journey, actually.
Yeah. What was the biggest thing? What was the most important spiritual lesson you learned for yourself?
Not to doubt myself. Not to doubt
yourself.
And to teach other people not to doubt themselves. That huge program of doubt, which is always there. I'm all the time having to remind myself, not to doubt it. And I'd like to know, my next question is, what is your connection with Ireland?
Oh, I have a large... are you familiar with the video series I did with Andre about the wizards, the ending of the wizard class?
Yes.
People of our world, wizards of one. If anyone's not familiar with this, is just context. You can go and watch it. It's all on the YouTube channel. When they were the wizarding community, were the tech people of the modern era, because there's no difference between magic and science. They're just different layers of perception of the technology. When the wizards were running the world, they had bloated into this gigantic ancestral debt thing that needed to be cut off. So my relation to Ireland was making sure that the soul families who had not thinned themselves out purposefully, that had stayed bloated, began to experience a thinning. Whether it was a forced thinning or a natural choice and inevitability, something is coming to you and you're going to be thinned by some other force. So I came as a physically manifested being from other places and spaces as a non-locality time event in which thousands of people would hear a massive broadcast across the continents, not all of them, and those that had the DNA awareness to hear would hear a non-locality, non-time event being a paradox, so that they could understand the paradox that they were already living within. And many of the wizarding class began to get the bigger pattern recognition that magic would be replaced by science, but there was no difference in magic and science. It was just a change in perception. And those soul families that endured the change of perception would have a great benefit over the next several hundred years, which is what ultimately happened by the time that we have now. Those that are in the technology, the IT, and the corporate conglomerates of technology are leading the great potential white picket fence lives. So that's Ireland, but I also have a lot of relations to Tara Hill, to Ishnok, and a number of other places. As a physical person that lived in those places, did ritual and ceremony. So I have a lot of relations, but I also have a lot of relations to Greece, and even more relations to the Kashmir district in Pakistan and in India, and then another very large relation to the Uyghurs in the Central Asia.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So my soul family have obviously busted through in order to come back here to Ireland, huh? For me to be here now.
You can use that terminology, but if you want to see it on a broader picture, you had to go back to Ireland because that's kind of where it started for you.
Okay. Yeah.
That's where you experienced your
That's where it
first
started.
source. Yeah, well, that's where you experienced your first source disconnection. Part of coming to Earth is learning source disconnection so that you can find the source within yourself and know that you were never disconnected. And part of your journey is to live on the lands and do what you do so that you become more source connected, which is the great awakening that you're going through in a place that you're living now. It's your healing.
Yeah. Thank you. It is. I feel that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah,
so thanks a lot. I got to move on to my next caller now.
That's good. That's great. Great news.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, Darren, you have a great day.
Move on to your next caller, Andrew. Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye now.
All right, everyone. So I want you, for those that are in the bye-bye. For those of you that are in the Zoom chat room, if you go down to the participants button, click on that, and you will see a way to raise your hand, lower your hand. But it's those that raise their hand will be selected, will be on the next call. For any of you that are listening on Facebook, on Twitch Live, on Periscope, on YouTube, if you want to be selected as a caller, please come to the chat room here at Zoom to be a part of it. All you got to go to is andrewbartzis.com, sign up for the email list, and you will be given instructions of how to join the Zoom chat room and then be selected from the great callers that are out there. A big shout out to everybody on the Facebook that's sending me messages and everyone on the Periscope that is also sending me messages. All right, Robert, let's spin the next wheel of callers and see what the universe presents.
Okay, next caller will be Brenda. Brenda, you are unmuted with Andrew.
Brenda, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Hi.
Hey, where are you calling from today?
I'm in Michigan.
Welcome. So what did you want to talk about? What did you think of the kid story?
I was only able to hear the last part. I'm sorry.
All right. Did any of it connect to you?
Well, I was listening to the woman Michelle, and yeah, I've had a connection to nature as well.
Okay. So what questions did you want to talk about today?
But I can't comment on this story much.
It's okay. So what did you want to talk about today?
I just wanted some general guidance from you. I was told that my guides were Arcturian, and I was wondering if you could confirm that.
So who told you and when?
Just somebody online, nobody that I could trust, I guess.
Okay. And how long ago was this?
About a month ago or 2 months ago.
Okay. So let me help you with understanding. When it comes to finding your guides and guardians, don't look external. And I know you hear a lot of people call, and I give a lot of confirmation and affirmation, but have you put any effort into connecting to them and knowing in your own effort, your own self-effort?
I've tried to connect with them, yeah, and I've asked for guidance, and they wake me up at 444.
And then what? So what happens after 444?
Well, not much.
Nothing? Not much. That is where you have to put effort. Okay?
Okay, so
meditate. So let me help you here. And it's not even meditate. It's entering the silence and stopping the curious, questioning monkey brain. That's the most important part. Okay?
Right.
The key to connecting to guides is turning off curiosity. You cannot curiosity learn what guides are, can be, or will be for yourself. They're a feeling, they're emotion, they're a connection. Now, I will help you out here. You do have a connection to the Arcturians, but you have to maintain it. Only you can maintain it. No one else can do it for you. And part of the reason it's a little difficult for you to connect is because they're waiting for you to put together the next level of heavy effort. Okay?
Okay, yeah, so commitment to the spiritual practice, basically.
Yes, but it's a commitment that has to challenge your inner habitual patterns that turn your spirituality off every few months.
Hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
I think so, yes.
You lose the lack of luster from doing it because it's a chore and not really a joy behind it. You're not really sourcing happiness from doing it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I'm doing it more to so I get answers.
Correct. You can't do it for that reason. That's an expectation from the very beginning. So what to you in your life is the funnest thing to do? Off the top of your head, what is the funnest thing for you to do in your life?
Honestly, going to concerts, listening to live music.
Okay, so that really sets your chemistry off, right?
Yeah.
Do you like to dance in the live music?
I'm not a good dancer, but yeah, I'll move around.
Okay, so this is what I would like for you to do. Is find some really good industrial trance music or drum and bass, something that's not really lyric oriented. It can have lyrics in it, but it's not supposed to be like a rock song from beginning to end lyrics. And what I want you to try to do is do a moving, dancing meditation that gets your energy flowing, and that in between songs, let's say you choose 5, 10, or 12-minute songs, and then in between each song, you take a 10-minute break where your goal is just to reach a meditative state of silence. You're shutting the monkey brain down. So if you can do that 30 minutes a day, and we'll say an hour a day. I know that's a little bit of a challenge, an hour of physical dance and move and music, but 3 breaks during that hour. So that's like 3 10-minute breaks, or 3 8-minute breaks. So that's really only a half hour of actual getting up and moving around. And 8 minutes where you're forcing your monkey mind to turn off. So that when you stand up to go and dance and connect back to the monkey mind and then stop again is where your guides, your guardians, and those things that want to have an opportunity to give you a message will come just before you end your silence and you begin your dance. You start training them with the right window of opportunity to send a message to you so that you can download it. Right now, you're having a tough time hearing it, let alone bringing it to the body, embodying it as a message that you've learned from. So the journey for you is embodying the message through music and through dance, so that joy factor is a part of it.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. What other
something I
things
used
bring
to
you
do
joy?
when I was a teenager. Huh?
Right. What other things do you do that bring you joy?
I love animals.
Okay. Like what kind? What do you do with them?
I love all of them, really.
Do you have any pets?
I have a cat.
Okay. So does your cat like to engage you and enjoy you whenever you're doing your meditation work?
Yeah, I think so. I think she's a pretty special cat.
Okay. Well, start engaging her as part of your next meditation journey, where maybe during some of the moments where you're sitting down, you can get the energy built up enough that the cat's attracted to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so she'll be the sign that I'm doing all right.
She'll be the canary or the cat in the coal mine. Yes. And understand, cats have attitudes. Okay.
Oh, I know.
Okay? Cats do have attitude. All right. But it'll go a long way at helping you, giving an opportunity where the guides and the guardians can connect to you, so you can start downloading into the body messages, and then embody the message.
All right, I'll do that.
Okay. What other kind of questions do you have?
Could you tell me where I'm from and how I ended up here?
Arcturus. You're from the Arcturian homeworld, Arcturus. And how did you end up here? Well, about 44 million years ago, you were a part of a great Arcturian exploration community who was looking for a particular thing called a celestial nursery, a place where a intergalactic or interuniversal portal would open at certain times or eras of history or eras of life, in which powerful energy beings from other galaxies and universes could come to a new reality and be a part of this celestial nursery to learn how this new place in light works. And you did this journey for about 300,000 years before you finally found the celestial nursery. And when you discovered there was huge volumes of souls coming in from other galaxies. And after they finished their internal rebirthing process in the celestial nursery, they were heading to a place called Earth. Now, Earth was not in the solar system that it is now, because our solar system was built from the ground up. And the first thing that was brought here is the moon that we have, that we see now up in our sky. And that was your first learning that Earth was even a potential of going and experiencing something completely different than what the Arcturian societies had created. And you returned to Arcturus, and along with many other followers that had gone to the celestial nursery, you began to hear the call of Earth in its own way, and you left your Arcturian heritage behind as a soul, meaning you decided not to incarnate there anymore, and to tell the soul families, hey, I'm going on a great journey. Anyone want to come? I'm looking for Earth. And many millions and millions of souls from Arcturus and many other worlds find themselves between the void space between solar systems and galaxies, and they collected into this beam of light that was being homed in onto this celestial source, a celestial source that was singing the universal song of love. And that's what brought you here to Earth around 41 to 44 million years ago, where the majority of your soul shards began incarnating here and reincarnating here. And it's where you began to experience source disconnection, source reconnection, divinity path, and the fact that time was relative to the observer and could be weaponized. The Arcturians had known nothing about this. Now, after about 5 million years of incarnating on Earth, the Lemurians of that particular area in history had physically met the Arcturians for the first time. Their paths had never crossed. And as a soul, even though you had left the Arcturian world, you innately knew who they were, what they were. And the Lemurians and the Arcturians started working together and trading light codes and DNA frequencies, and a great trading bazaar was created in which technology and thought constructs could be traded, directly manifested from world to world, and no longer need of collecting of resources. And there built up a great trade alliance and an education system between both worlds. And then this is where the main war focus came, where other worlds that were vastly jealous of the trade bazaars, the energetic trade bazaars that were done between Lemuria and Arcturus. And you began to experience jealousy of higher light beings, in which you didn't think other high light beings could be jealous or competitional, and that they were battling for infinite space, a single atom of space, when yet there was an infinite space for everyone to exist and coexist. And then you learned of the term forced evolution, posing as natural evolution. And this is where you took on your role as one of Earth's great warriors and champions, until you discovered that the longer you were a warrior and a champion, the more your light would burn brighter and shiner, but go out faster. And you learned great and potent and powerful things about war and the nature of expending your light. And to where you are today, that there are times you expend a great amount of light and yet no light comes back to you. And that your journey is learning how to create the infinite amount of light here as the manifest now without it burning yourself out. That's kind of who you are and what you've been through.
Wow. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Could you tell me what past life specifically affects me right now, or affects this one the most?
So why does a past life have to mostly affect you right now? Because you don't know how to ask a question. Right now, you have far more traumas from this life than any other past life that's affecting you.
Okay.
So my advice for you is to really stop paying attention to what the past life messages are, and understand that there's something in your present life that's far more important to learn from and to heal from. Like, what was life like for you when you were age 6, 7, and 8? I mean, are you ready to talk about how life was?
Yeah, I think I'm aware of how it was, but it's the integrating it, or the shadow work.
How was it?
A lot of changes around that age.
Okay.
Changing to another
What about
country.
what about when you had your puberty and you had your first period? Those traumas.
Yeah.
Okay? Those are the most important traumas for you. You heal those traumas, and I would tell you, gold and abundance will fall out of the sky and hit you on the head.
All right, that's my motivation to do it.
Okay? The motivation to do the inner work.
Yeah, to know that there's going to be something after it that's worth it.
But you can't go into it with that thought. Inner work doesn't work that way.
It's a trap.
You can't be gratified before you do it. That's what makes it hard.
Yeah, I learned recently that I have to go into the feeling of futility because that's my trauma.
Powerlessness.
Yeah.
Would you
It's
ever
very
say
hard.
you have this need? Would you ever say you have this thing come over you, a need to be needed?
I think, well, yeah, to be
Really
noticed.
not noticed. Really ponder the words, a need to be needed.
Mm. I need to be
Feel into
needed
that.
because then I don't have worth.
No, I want you to feel into it. Don't gratify yourself with that. Feel into this need to be needed. Is it a yes? Is it a no? If it's a yes, how far does it go? If it's a no, is it a firm no?
I think it's a yes. I do have that need.
Okay. That is where you start your inner work. Why you have a need to be needed. Because it is part of the duality that you're living in. At a young age, you were super spiritual, you saw colors, you had amazing dreams, you had to go through the second set of forgettings as you moved and all of your life changes and puberty came on for you, so on and so forth. Yeah, you had to shut your skills down and then turn them back on and then shut them out and turn them back on and shut them off until you are now where you're trying to turn them back on again.
Yeah.
Okay? Getting over that need to be needed. Stop shadow work. That which you look at will look back at you forever. You have done enough shadow work in the last 5 years that you don't need to really do much shadow work each year. So I really want you to put shadow work on hold. You don't need to do it. You've done a lot of it. You're down to the next stage. Are you ready to believe in yourself at the next level? Turning on your skill set and going job, life, everything that you offered me, I'm going to outcreate you. I'm reconnecting to my youth and that joy of being youthful now.
Okay, yeah. What you said about the dreams when I was little, I still remember one nightmare from when I was about 5.
Do you remember any dreams of being taken up into ships?
Not ships, but I do remember being chased by these big green monsters and now that I know about it, they look like reptilians.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they were harvesting you and your parents and everyone. Okay. Where did you move from?
I was born in Mexico City and I lived there until I was 7.
Okay. And when you got here, how much of a shock was it for you culturally?
Very big, I'd say.
Okay.
And starting school right away.
That's a trauma for you. This is why I'm saying it's this lifetime's traumas outvalue whatever the hell happened in past lifetimes. The trauma of moving from 7 years old from Mexico City to where you moved to, that was a trauma in your lifetime because you were taken away from your ancestral roots and brought into something that was not ancestrally balanced with you because your parents did not have the spiritual skill sets to do ancestral balancing. They didn't realize what kind of a psychic kid you were.
Yeah. How do I heal that?
One day at a time. Okay? Have you been back to Mexico?
No. It's been
Why?
a little over 20 years. I don't really have family there that I'm close to anymore, so.
So you would never go to Mexico unless there were family there.
Well, I didn't have a reason to, basically.
You would never go vacation like anybody else.
No,
No,
I haven't.
because
been
it was torn from you.
there.
So my advice, in the next year or so, plan a trip across the border, even if it's 25 miles across the border. So you can say that you did it and completed something. So you can feel the energies on the other side and just know. It's not about moving for you, because for the last 20 plus years, you've been stable where you're at and you are growing. It may not be the way you want, but you are stable, you are growing, you have friends and family.
Yeah.
Okay. What more do you want out of life?
Direction.
Okay. What do you do for a job?
I'm not working right now.
What have you done in the past?
Unless
kind of
babysitting
job?
counts, but before that I was in a greenhouse.
Okay. Have you done any kind of education?
No, I dropped out and I got my GED.
So why did you never get any more education?
I don't really like that school setting. I don't know, I guess I'm really pessimistic when it comes to that kind of setting.
Mm-hmm. So what is it that you want to learn to do this life? What is it you want to be?
I feel like something creative. When I was little, I wanted to be an actress.
Okay. A lot of little people want that.
Yeah.
So let's talk reality now. Let's talk reality as the adult that you are, who has to actually do the stuff to make something happen. The manifester, the one that is in charge of the reality. You're stuck because the previous choices that you have made have created a perception of stuckness. Okay? Like the caller before, you can go and take a cranial sacral class and have your whole life expanded. It costs less than around $400 for a weekend class and a ticket to get there in a hotel room. What stopped you from ever doing anything like that? Because you have a fear of learning. Because the 7-year-old that came here had to go right into a culture and society, and at a time where you really should have been turning on your inner genius light, it was being snuffed out by the idiot American teachers and the crappy people you had to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's a trauma. It's stopping you from learning.
So what would be the realistic?
Face it head on.
Yeah, what would be realistic for me, like to do something in healing? I don't even know where to go.
Face it head on. Make a choice. Go to a Reiki class, 1, 2, 3. Those are minimal investments. Go do 5 classes. I say this to you because you have a lot of education makeup to do for yourself. At a time when your great genius should have been really, really super active, it was suppressed. It's still waiting there for you to turn it on. One class is going to show you how much your education is suppressed and how much you really love it. You don't need to know the final course and destination of your education. You just got to be willing to go out and do and turn on the joy and happiness and go, wow, this is much better than sitting and watching Netflix at home or waiting for the next person to call me and go out.
Yeah, and I have thought of studying Reiki and seriously going into it.
Yeah, but you haven't converted yourself. You haven't converted yourself. What is it going to take for you to actually convert from saying you're going to do it to actually of saying it's done, I experienced it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's your healing. That's your journey. Just doing, no longer hesitating, waiting, and doubting.
Okay. Action is the healing.
Action will turn your knowledge into wisdom. The longer you are in action, in any form of inaction, the less you're going to learn about your greater purpose and spirit here and reasons why you're here.
Okay.
And why you were torn from your homeland and brought to where you are.
Was that an intention that I had for this life, that to happen?
It was an inevitability.
Okay.
Okay.
Could you tell me if I'm able, like, I've always had really crazy dreams and intense dreams, so am I connecting to my ancestral dreamscape?
Well, what are the dreams like?
Well, like before, they used to be like 5 dreams a night and really interesting, bizarre dreams, but now it's different.
How long has it been different for?
About a month or 2.
Hmm? So I'm going to use a line. The well of inspiration has become toxic for you.
And that well
You're
being the
not getting
dreams?
no, you're not getting enough out of the physical world to fuel the interesting dream world.
Mm.
You got to get interested in this world so that the dreaming world can give you more interesting things and ways to expand your connection to the worlds, to the uniworlds that we're layered into. You have those dreams because it's connecting you to many places and spaces at once, but you don't know what to do with it. You're a person that needs a teacher, an extended teacher, an extended education journey, and rediscover the joy of learning and what it really does for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, okay. I think I know where to go now.
Okay? Just do.
All right.
All right, darling, I'm going to let you go and move on to my next caller. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right. Hey, Robert,
Bye.
I think we have time. All right, Robert, are you there, Robert?
I am here.
So we can do a break or we can go another 2 callers. My phone battery's going to get a little bit low. Let's just go 2 more callers and then we'll end the show.
I'd say the same thing. Okay, our next call is going to be Marcus. Marcus, you're unmuted with Andrew.
Marcus, are you there?
I am. Hi, Andrew. I'm so excited.
Great. Where are you calling from today?
I'm calling from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Welcome to the show. So what did you think about the kid disclosure story?
I loved it. You know, I feel like I have some form of connection to trees and winds. So I sometimes feel like I understand the wind and trees, like they overlap with me and they share themselves with me somehow. So
Wonderful.
That was really, really nice.
Great. So what did you want to talk about today? Are there things that you want to talk about?
Absolutely, plenty of questions I could ask you. I'm very excited to talk with you. It's a great honor. Thank you for your work, Andrew.
Oh, thank you so much. So let's explore the universe with conversation.
Sure. So, can you tell me something about my galactic history, like what's happening or what has been happening?
Okay, what year were you born?
In 1984.
And were you born in the city of Albuquerque?
No, I was born in Germany. The Christmas night on the 25th. Well, actually, Christmas morning on the 25th.
And what year was that again?
1984.
Interesting. All right. So your journey of getting here as a physical human being has some potholes in it. And when I say potholes, meaning you got pulled outside of linear time to go and fix stuff that the soul family ancestors had made massive mistakes on. And they needed the powerful souls of the ancient future producing light to go backwards in time and produce lights backwards in time so that those that were making the great mistakes didn't repeat these mistakes. So you have a lot of insectoid DNA in you right now. Now, the mother and father you were born into, their mother and father, 7 generations back, has been maintaining a clear lineage connecting to insectoid and mantis type beings, those that come from the hollow earth or Mars or some other place. And they represent a massive soul family that incarnates on the surface, and to come there and to expand the collective dreaming hive. And part of your journey of learning to be a human was having to come here as a mantoid being 17 million years ago, right when Atlantis was rising to its top. Lemuria had been destroyed and lost in time, and Atlantis reemerged and resurfaced and seeded the world. And as a mantis type being, you came here and were part of the reinitiation of the great galactic trade of DNA, light, and knowledge and education. And the mantis collective that you were in, tens of thousands of colonies on worlds all over the galaxy and the multiverse. They had weapons. They were not a passive type species, but they weren't an aggressive either. And then there came a point where you're kind of like living on Earth as a summer home and on the mantis home world called Clethora. And you like have your winter home there. And your soul family can go back and forth between physical incarnation and directly manifesting and transmitting there. You lived a very multidimensional life as a mantis being interacting with Atlantis. Now, what that created was a singularity that had the duality of your existence in it. But part of your duality, the part on the Clethora homeworld, began to be attacked by the reptoid beings. And this would have been around 15 million years ago. And during that history, yourself that was living on the mantoid homeworld was killed by a reality-altering weapon. And you were essentially erased from linear time-space. But because Atlantis was never a first spawn species, it was a time travel-based species when the Lemurians are lost, and the Galactic Ascension machine was put together to make all time travel assassinations for all the clans and lineages, for them to have a root in space to come back to. So the part of you that was erased in the Mantis homeworld was brought back to the Earth grid and reincarnated within Earth, even though you were physically incarnated in Earth. And this brought you to what I call a double duality, where you could have two dreaming worlds intertwined at the same space. Does this make sense to you at all? Is this connecting?
I'm trying to a little bit. I mean, I had a past life regression where I actually saw myself having like insectoid kind of hips. And I was doing like all kinds of traveling, looking for different crystals on different planets. And so I don't know if that connects to that or not. But
it does, because the insectoids are called crystalline farmers. So they travel world to world to world and look for certain types of crystals that produce an almost undetectable light. You have to be very psychic and have very unique types of technology to discover this type of crystal that puts out its own photons. And then they will harvest these from asteroids, from stars, from planets, and then they'll bring them to very special worlds that are going through awakenings, because it'll advance the crystal's potential and power. And then they'll seed these into the mountains, the lakes, the rivers, everywhere, and then regularly come back to harvest them out of the ground and then put them somewhere else and go through a rapid aging of these crystals. And these crystals become extremely valuable to not just your species, but tens of thousands of other species, because they give the coordinates and lessons of essential elemental life and how it grows.
I'm having shivers because it might go off topic a little bit, but in that past life I'm talking about, I was collecting certain crystals, and then I realized that it was like a group of entities that wanted me to bring these crystals together, but their intentions were not all clear, and they were actually trying to use it for controlling a certain part of the galaxy or something, or even building a weapon. And they, in the end, banned me. It was a long story, but I'm having shivers because it feels like you're tapping into that type of story that I...
Bam. So now this comes into the next level of your galactic history, where Atlantis was the good guys for the longest time, but there comes a point when you fight so much the lines between good and bad are fully blurred. And the Atlanteans started responding to the many attacks, and then there was a big flipping. That which was light became dark, and that which dark became light. The reptoids became the good guys, and the Atlanteans became the bad guys who were suppressing tens of thousands of other species. Okay? Because they had been embroiled in war for so long. Now, you had been a part of this mantoid crystal gathering community for millions of years, but you also became entangled with the Earth Atlantean culture, which was using these crystals as a commodity that they would say, well, this world, that one of these crystals could rapidly advance tens of thousands of your species, and you wouldn't need to go through cyclical evolution just by living around these crystals in the mountains or making pyramids out of them or whatever hyperdimensional technology you wanted to use. You could rapidly advance tens of millions of beings without controlling or dominating them. Okay? Or they could give these crystals that had other technology around them where the information would come out very slow and it would slow their evolution so that the rulers or the kings of the society would determine how their fiefdoms would be raised.
That was pretty
And
nice.
this is where this is where many of those crystalline communities went, hey, Atlantis, this isn't what we signed up for.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a big split where many Atlanteans said, hey, we're the bad guys now. We're the bad guys now. We're murdering people left and right, dominating and controlling. And we have been in this many-year collection of these commodities, and we are using it like a tool right now. And then this created a great separation where Atlantis went super technology or super spiritual, and there was very little in between. This is where your soul, realizing that many of these crystalline communities just weren't going to work with them anymore, their ability to harvest crystals would be very limited, even though there would be crystals who wanted to be a part of the forced evolution system because that was their natural choice. It didn't matter. But the really important and powerful ones wouldn't be available to you unless you were on that middle ground, who understood that those crystals that operated in the middle ground were massive ancestral balancing crystals that could connect to 10,000 past generations and the 10,000 future generations as a computational processing of what it took to resolve the time travel karmas between people, which was creating the charge and polarity that constantly flipped things from light to dark, dark to light between eras of history.
All right.
You're getting shivers still?
Yeah. I'm like, when listening to you always often blows me and my mind goes like, oh, I go in this awe state and then, my worlds go away.
Yeah.
So what is my life about now? Who am I from your perspective today?
Okay, what do you do for a job?
I'm in software. I'm doing project management in software right now.
How long have you been doing it for?
Well, I only recently started again. I was practicing hypnotherapy for like about 3 years. I had my own practice, and then I went back to software because just, the money was better.
Okay, when you were doing hypnotherapy, how many clients a month were you doing?
I was doing about 8 a week, 16, 30, like 30 a month.
Okay, that's pretty significant. Okay.
Yeah.
But you also understand that you can only do so many sessions in a day and so many in a month to month before it burns you out, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's why I also stopped.
Right. Okay. That's why you went back to software.
Right.
Now that you've been packing away a little bit of money, you're not going to stay in software, right?
Well, actually, I have not packed any money away, but no, my plan is not to stay in software now.
Okay. How many years do you think you'll be before you're like, I can't do this no more?
Or maybe 5, 6 years or so.
Okay. So then what does it really matter of what you're doing now?
It doesn't matter.
I'm putting a word play here for you to understand that there's something in you that is, I need a purpose beyond my purposes.
Right.
Okay. You don't need a purpose beyond your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You just need something in your life that gives you the next form of giddy joy when you're doing it. Okay, when you first started getting spiritual, it gave you a lot of joy, didn't it?
Oh, I did. Oh, yes.
Okay, right. Does it give you the same amount of joy now that it did years ago?
No.
Why? Why do you think so?
Well, because I guess it's not as new and shiny and exciting. Well, it is actually kind of, but I don't know. Everyday life takes over.
There you go. There
Right?
you go. Okay.
So
So
what
how do you stop? How do you stop everyday life from taking over every day?
I don't know.
That is the journey to being spiritual, and the challenges, trials, and tribulations that will come up in the moment, and which, as you, as a conscious being of choice, will have to go. I'm choosing to live a multidimensional, multifunctional, photonic being of light who can be in this duality and singularity at the same time, process it, understand it, and heal it from it. And you got to be able to say that hundreds of times in a day when you are challenged with the day that says, do this, do this, do this. You can do many things. When you learn to give yourself unconstricted room to move your energy, arms, and legs, you'll be surprised how much more there is to learn about this world that'll make you giddy.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. That's very true. So, I'm struggling sometimes with finding my strength and being present in the moment, being present with what's happening right now. So I guess what you're saying also is looking for something else, but this very moment where I'm at.
Yeah.
Can you give me
you're going to be there? Yeah, I can give you many hints. You know you're going to be doing software for about 5 years.
Right.
Go and sit down with a financial planner and plan out the next 5 years of how much you can save with the right amount of budget that still gives you the opportunity to learn in the next 5 years.
Right.
So you're in software. Are you doing a 40-hour-a-week job, or does it kind of have the grind to it where you got lots of hours and then lots little?
No, it's more like a 40-hour.
Okay. Well, this is where you can go, and in a year you can go from craniosacral myofascial level 1 in both classes to, by the end of a year, be craniosacral 2 myofascial level 2 and ready to take a touch license or a craniosacral 3 myofascial 3 class with somatic release in a year. Okay.
Okay.
Do you think you could do that?
I definitely could. I'm not really thinking about it, but I definitely could.
Okay, that's the first hint. The second hint. When's the last time you've been out on the water on a boat?
Oh, I don't know, years ago.
Okay. Did you ever have a yearning to be out on the water?
I like water very much. I mean, I kind of grew up a little bit close to the ocean in Italy. So I feel very nice with ocean here.
It's in your DNA. It's in your DNA. Here's the hint. Go explore it. Go rent a boat. Okay? Go feel the ocean and the life in it and make that a part of your moving meditation. There are many people that would give their left arm to be out on the water every 3 or 4 or 5 days and to do their meditations out there in the peacefulness of the open. You can go and get yourself a small little boat and go on little lakes and rivers and for a little bit of investment in a year.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Okay, where are you living at now?
In Albuquerque.
So basically, all you got is lakes and rivers around you, right?
Yeah, just let it rain.
Okay. There are many lakes and rivers that you can go, and you can get a small little power boat, 12 horsepower power boat. Okay. And you can do that for probably under $1,200 with a trailer.
All right.
and sell it for about the same amount of money.
Right.
Okay? When you're done with it.
Good,
Okay?
good.
So that's your second hint. Reconnect to the water. Now your third hint. What relationships? When's the last time you've been in a relationship?
I'm married right now.
Okay. And how's it going?
Very good. It's going very good.
Okay. What does she do for a job?
She's an artist
Okay. What kind of art?
and a psychic. So she's right now she's working on her tarot deck, and she's creating her own tarot.
Okay.
Mhm.
So with your technical skills, you could probably help her put together a product sheet and get it produced, couldn't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what we're doing. I mean, I often do like streaming and the courses for online courses, and we've done a lot of things together in the past.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the next year, while you're taking craniosacral myofascial, you can do your own podcast with her.
Yeah, we could. We're actually working on something like that right now.
So in a year from now, can you feel that you've actually done it in your heart right now?
Oh yeah, that for sure.
In the year, you've got a boat out on the water meditating. I'm trying to give you the how to be multifunctional, multidimensional, expand while you're in a job you know you're going to be out in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The way of life is what you have to change. So that more light, you're producing more light. The more you learn how to produce light, like being educated and going through those healing journeys, really challenging the mind, body, and the spirit in the healing classes, and then challenging the mind, body, and spirit to be free in the openness of nature.
Right.
Okay. All right, brother, I've got the music there. I got to let you go and move on to my next caller. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you, Andrew. Take care.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. All right, Robert, let's spin the wheel of caller for the last caller.
Okay, last caller will be Atasia.
Tasia, how are you doing today?
Good. It's Atasia from LA.
Tasia, yeah, from LA, the one that's into the static dances. I remember you. How's it going today?
Amazing. So happy to be speaking with you and everyone else who's listening. Many blessings.
Great. What did you think of the little the kid story that I opened up with?
Oh, I thought it was a lovely, allegorical and simple, symbolic story about the realities that we're traversing and that we live in, and the simple yet complex layers to deception and perception, and shared agreements about that, or the lack of knowledge of what's really true, and confusion has infiltrated our nature.
Uh-huh. Well, wonderful. So what did you want to talk about today?
Well, I had some questions about the Babylonian money magic system, which is something that I've heard you speak about on many different occasions. However, I seem to have missed out on the explanation of what that actually is and how it affects currency today. And is there a video that you could name or point me in the direction of where I could do the further research on that?
There's no single video that will explain it all in one.
Okay.
Because it is an evolution from the age of magic to the age of science. And the age of magic had a belief behind it of how to reach the unlimited and limited point of view. Now, the Babylonian money magic system started from the first Babylonian laws that were created, in which soul families would be tied to their debt through physical mutilation if laws were broken. Okay? That created a scarring debt. Life was valued, slaves were valued, and life had to go through a valuation process. Now you fast forward today, every part of the Babylonian money magic still comes from valuating life as cattle or chattel. Are you familiar with the difference between chattel and cattle?
I am, but I would love a concise distinction because I think that'll help me and the audience understand better.
Okay. So cattle is not conscious and can be slaughtered without any conscience effort, meaning you don't have to worry about your conscience. If something is labeled as chattel in the Babylonian money magic system, it's karmically free for you, even though it isn't. Now, chattel means you are aware that they're a conscious being and you are in domination, not dominion with them. Both evaluate a being as lesser than equal. That is the essence of the Babylonian money magic system. It is a way for lessening the valuation of any life force or increasing its valuation over any other life force. This is what soul families had to use as an energetic bartering system between soul families to get special children born who could have money behind them so they could be educated and be able to read a book, versus born out in the middle of nowhere, raised by wolves, and yet you don't know how to be in society. Or you're completely middle class and your education is you can read books and you know philosophy, but you'll never really get exposed to real teachers. Information became hierarchical, lifetime to lifetime. And the Babylonian money magic system was a way to get lineages or soul families to be bloated with all these extra people who wanted to be born into them because they were the ones that are going to have the money. Okay? Now, fast forward it, you lose magic where magic ends, and then science takes over. So science is its own belief, its own hierarchy, and its own religion that put intense belief behind numbers, valuation of those numbers, and how we valuated gold as their backing of our currency, which was a magical journey over many thousands of years. So here's another example. When the Spanish were collecting the gold from the Mayans, oftentimes the British would rob or capture ships or sunken ships, and they'd get back 400, 500 tons of gold. And instead of spending that money, because they knew that it was stolen under extreme aggression, they knew that it held a resonance of energy. And then the British would take it to their very nasty black wizards, who would then curse this gold even more, okay? And they would do it over 1 or 2 generations. So thousands of people would be putting an entire lifetime into cursing this 400 tons of gold. And then after 60, 70 years, they would put it back into circulation. Now, not one family did this. Thousands of families fed the Babylonian money magic system. Are you starting to put the dots together now of how it works?
A bit more, but I don't understand why they would curse the currency and then recirculate it. What was the effect of the curse that they cast?
It would make money more potent than belief itself.
Wow.
Okay? Because they were about to take the gold backing away and make it a digital belief. So the cursing of the money made you want more of it.
Wow.
Which guided lifetime to lifetime. Imagine 100 lives of always seeking the gold, always seeking the money. And that the whole time you're just cursing yourself lifetime to lifetime. Now, there are people who had lifetimes where they realized the money is cursed. It's not natural back trading. It's not bartering. It's not truly giving honor. It's an eye for an eye to cut off a hand if you're starving and you steal. Versus give the man a loaf of bread. At the end of the day, you didn't sell. Right? Back to cattle and chattel. Now, fast forward, we have laws that do define how children are going to be born. Believe it or not, there are laws that determine if you're going to be called a human child or not because of the DNA test they do at birth. So your blood has to be in a class blood type. Otherwise, you're classified as alien and will never be born. Okay? Laws have a valuation to them. And now, here's an example. Every court case in the entire world is backed by a bond that is traded on an open market. Did you know that?
No.
Right. It's called the QSIP number. So this is where the cult of Saturnella, or the cult of Saturn, who are the chief justices of our United States, the black robes, or the Whigs in Britain, anything that uses the common law system, maritime law system, is based in black magic. Period. Okay? Right.
Yes.
That is using cursed gold on purpose to enslave and entrench people into a system of forced evolution. Work within our conforms and constraints, or be conformed and constrained on purpose until you surrender or die. As cattle or chattel. That is the Babylonian money magic system, or Babylonian money curse system.
Wow. Okay. That is so...
And it is ever pervasive. Let's say you have to you have a car, you have to have insurance, you have to have a registration, you have to have a driver's license, and those are privileges that can be taken away from you anytime. Versus being a free man of nature, obeying your inner rules and not stepping on the journeys of others. In which, our society has done that before. It's really only the last 11,000 years that the reality of the Babylonian money magic system was created at such high layers of interacting with us on the physical level and what the fetus in the womb had to plan. Example, 300 or 700 years ago, your chances of going to court were very slim, and if you did go to court, it didn't really mean anything. Now you go to court, you got to sit for a speeding ticket, theft, this, that, with all your people that are entangled in it, and the fetus has to go, well, who is going to be the jury of my peers? And that means the fetus, instead of having the unlimited point of view, has to work within this conformist nature of valuing everything as cattle or chattel that has an open market contract on it. To curse it.
Wow.
That help put together the dots? Right.
It does. And the reason why I asked that question is because I have intuitively understood growing up in America how corrupt the system, quote unquote, is, whether it be financial or judicial or economic, and have had this...
At every level, it is corrupt. At every level. And has been for hundreds of years.
And because of that, as a spiritual person or someone that considers myself here to be a part of the change on the planet, I have had a resistance to growing as a business person within the system and being spiritual. And the last time we spoke, you called me out on that self-defeating enlightenment trap belief system of I can't be of spiritual integrity and effective and be wealthy or heavily involved in business because it's all corrupt. So I'm asking about this issue of what advice do you have for me personally and many other people who may be suffering from the self-defeating belief that we cannot be engaged in business or make money and remain uncorrupted by it?
So over the last few weeks, I've been telling people that are in business, they need to learn to channel their business like a spirit animal guide. And there's where you discover how charge and polarity from business can repay you by allowing the charge and polarity to grow your business. Now, the Babylonian money magic system innately is here to create a system of disconnection from us. Now, there's an apparatus and management system that's taking the disconnected and educating them in disconnectedness. That's a different aspect of the system. Now, when you're educating people in connectedness, the Babylonian money magic system still has to give you a valuation in the unseen world. This is where you can define how those contracts are. You can say no to a thing. Anything that I physically play, I pay nothing beyond it in the unseen world. You've got to create a counter operating system for it. That means you have to evaluate yourself and the work that you do, but also know that it's got to be grounded in reality without selling yourself short. Now, another thing, a lot of people, they go into business and they get to do a spiritual business, but they learn right away that not all spiritual people are good people. There's a lot of people who are spiritual and are just shitty people. Business is full of that. You got to have a hard skin early, but not be constrained by it. And this is where many people fear, oh, how am I going to harden myself up and not have compassion for people like I do now because it flows my love. And business is not flowing of love, it's flowing of abundance. Okay? And this is where a lot of spiritual people feel guilty of cash flowing through their spirit even before the cash has ever been brought to them, because they innately know it's tainted. And they don't have an inner alchemy to untaint it because they've evaluated themselves and they have planned spiritual contracts within this system of money, good and bad. There is a way to use it for yourself. At any moment, you can make a choice that shines a light so bright that attracts people to your products and places if you have the infrastructure in place. Is your light bright enough to create the infrastructure for yourself? That's where a lot of other people don't do the infrastructure necessary. They don't learn marketing. They don't do this because of fear of big business and big work and all the corruption that it could bring. It won't bring any corruption if you never do it, but it also brings no growth. There are very few other markets in this world where you can go and do anything, is there? What's the alternative to the Babylonian money magic curse? Nothing. Nothing. There is no alternative. That means you would have to create one on your own that you are morally comfortable with. And that's the next part of challenge of spiritual people evaluating themselves. An infinite being giving an unlimited point of evaluated view. That's counter to the nature, but necessary to the time. That help?
It's extremely helpful. Luckily, this is being recorded because you speak with such profound level of multidimensionality to what you're even speaking to that I know that there's only certain levels that I'm consciously able to understand right now. But when I listen back, there'll be more that's like, yes, okay, I get it. Not even this, what is it, Bitcoin and all of that is still caught up in the same matrix of...
Absolutely. It's still based in a petrodollar currency. Still converted back to it.
Yeah.
It's still ruled and governed by its laws.
So the purpose is, or the point is that I have to do the inner alchemy work to realign my relationship to said money magic curse and still be willing to utilize it, but not giving it tacit consent to affect me. That's chattel and tattle.
Correct. Well, you still got to go back to sovereignty. That's why so many of our teachings go back to sovereignty and what it means to you, and beginning to find your rules, borders, policies, procedures at a daily practice level, so that when it becomes natural to you, interacting with the Babylonian money magic system isn't hard. It isn't hard at all. It's just learning the spiritual lingo and the physical lingo of what you need to do to manifest.
And calling power back from being afraid of the money magic curse as if it's more powerful than I am as a sovereign creator.
Well, fear itself is the defeater, and you got to go into the core of the fear and then realize that the core of the fear had many other core fears based off of subject matters that have lack or an unknowingness of how to use the funds. or previous lifetimes that used the funds completely wrong for the darkness, and you fear of holding the power that it'll corrupt you and your lineage. You got to get over all of that at an early part of your journey into the daily practice of knowing that the system, you can outcreate it at any time. Just because there's this money magic system there doesn't mean you can't manipulate it. People do it all the time, and many of them are completely unaware and totally asleep, yet are fully manipulating the system. You can do it. Anyone here in this audience can do it. Are you going to put the brain power into it? That's what it is.
Yes, that's the thing that I needed to hear, is that basically any of us, myself included, can choose to take, I don't know what it is, the red or the blue pill in the matrix at any point. We have that power no matter what the system has done or is even trying to do at any given moment, but will we choose or even activate through action what is necessary to prove it?
Or disassemble the construct that says we need a pill or need actual cash between us so that you can make digital numbers in an account that doesn't affect anyone other than yourself. Because putting digital numbers in your account as a manifestation does not step on the journey of others. But the system will never allow you to randomly put numbers in your digital account, even though the oligarchs of this world make up cash as a digital thing with nothing backing it. Right. See? Money is an illusion. Totally an illusion. Therefore, we can manipulate the illusion if we understand the illusion that its fundamental layers of how the rules are shared between money. That's why there are so many people out there that can, do those abundance readings and really help people get back onto the flow, because they're tuned into the system like a mechanic and can get it to work for them. You can too. Anyone can. Okay? It takes more than charisma now in this modern world. Okay, before radio and television, it was only charisma that made money. Okay? Because that's what signed and sealed deals that actually made big cash sales. Now, charisma doesn't mean anything. It's, do you have the infrastructure to keep and maintain? Do you have the brain power behind you to outcreate the other competitional systems? And the next thing, I know you may have heard me say this before, the biggest lie the light worker community believes in right now is that this was a collective awakening. It was never meant to be a collective awakening. It was meant to be an individual awakening, which people go through individuated experiences of sovereignty from the Babylonian money magic system, defining who they were past, present, and future by what types of spiritual contracts their infinite fetus had to create to live within the Babylonian money magic system. And then these full sovereignty of choice as God, creator, manifest beings who have the power to say to the system, your bullets don't affect me today. Okay? Your money, I can create millions in my account and not feel spiritually guilty about it. Because it is the illusion. It's the Maya, the dream. You're the dreamer in the dreamed, awakened in the dream as the dreamer. Creating and manifesting it all. Pow! There you go. That'll take you a few years to decipher.
Wow.
Yes. And cue on the music. Awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot for calling in. Thank you so much.
Thank you for holding this space and sharing your wisdom and your perspective. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, cool. All right, brother, take it easy. All right, Robert, that was a fun show.
That was definitely good. I was going to say, can we get you another phone with the new battery? Keep going.
We can keep going, yeah. 1 second. Hold on, I have 40% because I've been charging it as I'm talking.
Oh, I was just making a joke, but if you want, yeah, let's keep rocking.
No, I think I'm done right now. I'm done. I got another show coming this Thursday and then this Friday. So everyone, be on the lookout for this coming show on Thursday. And then Friday, we'll be having our webinar also. All right, Robert, let's call this show to an end. And we'll talk to you on the other side.